So today here we have the Sony A6300. This is actually our brand new camera that is going to replace this camera right here, which is the Canon T5. I've been saving up for a while to get this camera. It's got a lot of cool features that we can see on the box right here. One of them, of the main features, not special to this camera, but it's going to have continuous autofocus during video recording. So unlike this camera, when I'm doing stuff like moving a box, it can track it in focus, which this camera does not do. It also has 4K recording, and so no matter if we're gonna shoot in 4K or still publish in 1080p, the video file should look very, very good. And so without further ado, let's go right into it. This is the kit. So it comes with the Sony A6300 and the 16 to 50 millimeter lens, which is kind of just a basic lens for this model of camera. So here on the top, we just have some limited warranty information, some quick start guides. Another cool thing about this camera is there's an app that you can download on iPhone and Android, and you can connect to the camera, you can take pictures, look through its lens to see what it's seeing, start video, all that cool stuff. So here we just got more paperwork, a guide about all the lenses that we can use on this sort of camera. So lots of paperwork. And then going deeper into the belly of the beast, off to the side here we have a eyepiece, which is going to slide onto the camera, the OLED viewfinder, which is going to be pretty cool. Here's a strap for the camera. Not sure if I'm going to put that on. And here's the batteries that the A6300 uses. I hear that these don't last a while, but the one other plus that this camera has is you can charge it with a USB battery bank via a micro USB slot in the side of the camera. So this shouldn't be that big of a problem. It's a pretty small battery compared to what I'm used to, like a Canon battery. But that's cool. They also do include a micro USB cable for charging or connecting to your computer, and then a wall adapter kit. So this is how they want you to charge the battery, is you always keep the battery in the camera and then you just plug it into the wall like you would your phone or something like that. And then to the left side of the box is the main event, and then that is all for the box. So I'll put that off to the side and then bring the camera out here front and center. So as I said, this has the 16-50 millimeter lens right on there, so no need to go out and buy a lens right away. It's image stabilized, that's what the OSS means, optical steady shot, which is Sony's kind of image stabilization term. But here it is. It's very small, just like a lot of other mirrorless cameras, the A6000 as well as the A6500, which share a very similar body. And if we take off the lens, we should see the sensor right there because it's a mirrorless. It doesn't have any mirrors in here, so like the name implies. So let's see if the battery has any charge at all, and then we'll turn on the camera if it does. Alright, so I've been able to play around with this camera for a couple of days, and so with that I want to share with you my first impressions of the Sony A6300. Right off the bat, when you pick up the camera at a store, or if you get it and you open the box, you'll know that it feels fantastic. The quality, there's like a metal, the body is made out of metal, the grip feels nice and ergonomic. I think the only weird thing when it comes to ergonomics here is where they put the record button. It's placed on the side here, so you can't use the shutter button on the top of the camera. You might be able to set one of the shortcut buttons, but it really wants you to use this recording button on the side of the camera, which for me, if I wasn't able to look at the screen and maybe I turned it like this and hit the record button, it's not tactile enough so I can hear a click or feel a click. You kind of just push and hope that it starts recording. Now obviously if you can see the camera, you'll know it's recording, but there's no lights, LEDs anywhere but on the bottom. There's an activity LED right here for when it's saving to the SD card, but when you hold it like this, or if it's on a tripod or anything, you can't see that. So if it's facing like this, it's kind of hard to know if it's actually recording or not. And that could be solved with a flip out screen like we see on Canon cameras and Panasonic cameras, but Sony's do not have this. They have this articulating screen that can pop out a bit so you can prevent it from overheating, or if you want to look up, if you're looking down at the camera like that, you can do it, or if you're kind of tilting it, the camera down like that, you can view, but there's no way to swivel the screen out. And some people view this as a negative because the Panasonic cameras have this, the Canon cameras have this. So it is an inconvenience, but as I mentioned earlier, Sony made an app where you can remotely connect to your camera. So if you can hold your phone somewhere near the camera, if you're in a studio environment, you just pull out your phone, you'll make sure the framing is right, you can start recording. Now obviously that would be a problem for a vlogger, but I'm not a vlogger and I'm not really gonna be looking at this first impressions of the camera in the view of a vlogger, because the most of the time when I use my camera, this camera, it's gonna be inside, it's gonna be on a tripod near a monitor that I can hook it up to, and I can see if all the settings are correct. Another cool thing, I talked about it very briefly earlier in the video, these two shortcut buttons here are fantastic. They leave you one up here, shortcut 1 button, and then there's a second shortcut button on the front or on the back of the camera. And these are great because you can really make them anything you want, but if you dig in the menus, you can just see how many functions you can set to these custom buttons. So in the end, I really enjoy these two shortcut buttons because it feels like I can make this camera much more custom to me. Coming with another negative, the battery on this camera is absolutely nothing. Here's the actual battery of what it looks like, but it does not hold a charge for very long, especially if you're shooting in 4K, as I put in the battery the wrong way. Especially if you're shooting in 4K, don't expect to be able to shoot a long time on one of those batteries. I would be really mad at Sony for this if it weren't for that they added a micro USB port to charge the camera from any USB battery pack. So here's the charger and power brick they include with you in the box. This is how they want you to charge the battery. But you can easily replace the power adapter with a USB battery bank, and you can put this on your tripod or near your tripod, and you can charge the camera just like that. And if we didn't have this feature, I think it would be a really big deal breaker for battery life. But since we can do this, I don't think it's that bad personally. But one of the most important things about this camera for me is the quality of video, and is absolutely fantastic. In the full review, I'll show more video samples that really stress the camera's sensor, but after just shooting some test video, you can already see that this camera yields an incredible image. If you're shooting in 4K, 100 megabytes per second, it will actually shoot a 6K video, but in the camera, it will downscale it to 4K, which is a benefit. We get to see extra crispy 4K footage, but a negative of that is that it releases a lot of heat. And if you look into this camera, you'll probably already see that some people complain that their camera is overheating if you record for a long period of time. I've not had a problem with it overheating yet. But back to the image, yes, 6K down to 4K looks great. And even if you're going to output a video in 1080p, you should still record in 6K on this camera, because you can take that 4K video file, downscale it to 1080p, and it will look much more sharp. And another reason I chose this camera over something like a Panasonic G7 is because it has wicked fast autofocus. There's no environment that I could be in where it really trips it up. I haven't tested it extensively, but it can track my face well, and it focuses super fast, especially if you're using a Sony native lens. And I am no photographer, I'm not going to be taking lots of pictures on this camera, but I think the burst rate of this camera is absolutely insane. If you're going to be taking photos of any fast moving subject, like animals or sports events, I think this camera will be really good for that. I've touched upon a couple of the cons already, but another one I want to discuss is the menu system. It's not a giant deal breaker for me, but this menu system is very, very hard to get accustomed to. It's not as straightforward as something like I've seen on the Panasonic cameras, especially not as something as good on the Canon cameras. You can find everything you want to get to if you want to go do some digging through the main menu, but if you're trying to do something very quick and you want to do it often, I'd say set it to a custom shortcut button because this menu system is laughable. Another issue I've had with this camera is it has an OLED viewfinder, which is great. I'm not dissing on the OLED viewfinder, but the sensor is incredibly sensitive to any movement because it has to detect if your eye is near the sensor so it can switch over. And even if my hand's all the way back here, it switches. So I think it's a bit too sensitive. I found myself it shutting off a lot like that, and then you have to wait if you move your hand, if you set up here or something like that. So I just turned the viewfinder off because I found it too annoying. So in terms of a first impressions, that's kind of all I have right now. I'm super excited to use this camera. I'm just really excited for the autofocus during video and the amazing 4K video. Those are the main features that I'm looking forward to. You'll be seeing hopefully higher quality videos on this channel because we're going to be shooting a lot with this guy very soon. So thank you guys for watching this first impressions. A review should be coming once I feel like I really truly understand this camera. There's a lot of big announcements coming soon that we'll talk to you about. One of them is we've gotten better thumbnails thanks to ConrGraphics. His Twitter link will be down in the description below if you want to check out his other artwork. He's super talented. And so yeah, we will see you guys in our next video.